Imagine starting the day already behind because you hit the snooze button too many times. The rush, the stress, the sense that you're chasing the clock never really goes away. Now picture a different start, waking up before dawn, feeling calm, focused, and ready. That's the promise at the heart of the miracle morning. Sarah, a young professional, once lived in a constant state of overwhelm. Within 2 weeks of trying a simple morning ritual from this book, her confidence and productivity began to soar. Hal Elrod puts it plainly. How you wake up each day and your morning routine, or lack thereof, dramatically affects your levels of success in every single area of your life. The story behind the book is just as compelling as its message. In 1999, Hal was hit head-on by a drunk driver. He was clinically dead for 6 minutes before doctors revived him. They told him he might never walk again, yet Hal refused to accept that fate. Each day he chose to wake up and face a new morning, slowly regaining strength until he could run ultramarathons. Nearly a decade later, he faced another setback when the 2008 financial crisis left him broke and $50,000 in debt. Instead of giving in to despair, he leaned on the same habits and mindset he had practiced before, using them to rebuild his life from the ground up. His journey from near death to financial ruin and then to becoming a best-selling author proves that profound change is possible when you choose how to start your mornings. Hal's life shows he is more than just a survivor. From an early age, he was a student of self-improvement. As a teenager, he began training himself in the power of positive thinking, writing down affirmations like, "I am committed to being the most positive person that I know." That habit of directing his thoughts became a lifelong practice. Over the years, he earned an MBA, built a career in business and coaching, and kept testing new ways to improve. When he couldn't find answers, he turned to shelves of personal development books, blending their wisdom into his own daily routines. Out of this process came the framework for the miracle morning, built around 6 powerful habits he calls the life S.A.V.E.R.S. Silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. These practices are simple, but when combined, they form a routine that has helped thousands transform their mornings and in turn their lives. With the 6 habits now introduced, it helps to pause and ask why mornings themselves are so powerful. The author thinks that the way we greet the day has a ripple effect on every area of life. If you wake up late, groggy, and unprepared, the rest of the day often follows that same pattern. But if you rise with intention and focus, even before the world gets noisy, you create momentum that carries forward into work, relationships, and personal goals. This simple shift in timing becomes the foundation for long-term success, because it changes how you approach every challenge that follows. The author said that one of the most important principles behind this practice is taking full responsibility for how you live. There is a line that says, "Remember, the moment you accept total responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you claim the power to change anything in your life." That means no blaming circumstances or other people. One reader described feeling trapped in a job he disliked until he decided to stop pointing fingers and instead take ownership of his mornings. By shifting his perspective and applying this idea, he suddenly felt more in control of his choices, which gave him the confidence to look for new opportunities. The morning routine itself becomes an act of empowerment, a daily reminder that the day begins in your hands, not in the grip of external forces. Another insight the author offers is that sleep is not only physical but also mental. He once experimented by telling himself he would feel fully rested on just 4 hours of sleep, and remarkably, he woke up energized. Then he compared it with 9 hours on another night, but with the belief he would wake up tired, and he did. His conclusion was that you can create your own reality, meaning your mindset can shape how your body responds. This may sound unusual, but many readers have confirmed it in their own way. In fact, surveys show that over 70% of people who tried these methods considered themselves not morning people at first, but after a few weeks they began waking up with far more energy than they expected. It shows that the story you tell yourself about your mornings matters as much as the number of hours you sleep. The preparation actually begins the night before. The author suggests making small changes that make waking up easier, setting out clothes, placing a glass of water by the bed, and even moving the alarm clock to the other side of the room. One person shared that after placing his alarm in the bathroom, he had no choice but to get up to turn it off. By the time he reached it, he was already more awake and less likely to crawl back under the blanket. These simple adjustments signal discipline from the very first moment of the day. The author explains that discipline, when repeated daily, gradually forms the lifestyle you want. By designing the environment to support your choices, you lower resistance and make consistency more natural. A major obstacle many people face is what the author calls rear-view mirror syndrome. This is the tendency to let past failures dictate what we believe is possible in the future. When you wake up replaying yesterday's mistakes, it is easy to feel stuck. The miracle morning interrupts that cycle. By beginning fresh each day with practices like affirmations, you remind yourself that you are not limited by yesterday's outcomes. One reader shared how she began reciting an affirmation every morning about being confident and capable in her work. Within weeks, she noticed herself speaking up more in meetings and no longer shrinking from challenges. As the author advises, it is essential to talk to yourself in ways that inspire confidence and expand your sense of possibility. The thread running through all these principles is courage. The author reminds us there is nothing to fear because you cannot fail, only learn, grow, and become better. Starting the day early and deliberately takes courage, especially when it feels easier to stay in bed. But courage grows when you prove to yourself that you can act differently, that you can let go of old excuses, and that you can step into the day on your own terms. In this way, the morning is not just about the clock, but about building the identity of someone who takes charge. When you add it all together, accepting responsibility, reframing sleep, preparing your environment, and releasing the weight of the past, you form the mindset that makes the routine work. These ideas prepare the ground for the 6 habits to flourish, because they show that the real miracle is not the activities themselves, but the attitude behind them. With this mental framework in place, we can now look at how the S.A.V.E.R.S routine works as a practical system to transform every morning. Building on the mindset foundation, the author introduces a simple but powerful system for mornings. Instead of relying on scattered practices, he combines 6 proven habits into a single sequence called the S.A.V.E.R.S. These letters stand for silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. By stacking them together, mornings transform from a rush scramble into a clear, intentional ritual. One friend of the author, Pat Flynn, has spoken about how this framework helped him stop drifting through his early hours and instead focus on his most meaningful work before distractions arrived. The real magic comes from having a plan that starts the day with purpose. The thinking behind this is what many call habit stacking. The author believes that linking habits together creates momentum and makes them easier to sustain. Instead of facing the question, "What should I do now?" your morning already comes with a ready-made map. It saves mental energy because each action leads naturally to the next. A useful image is a row of dominoes. Once the first one falls, the others follow in sequence. In the same way, starting with silence sets off a chain reaction that carries you through affirmations, visualization, and the rest of the routine. This flow helps conserve willpower for bigger decisions later in the day. The first step, silence, might sound simple but can be surprisingly powerful. Taking a few minutes for meditation, prayer, or mindful breathing helps quiet racing thoughts and reduce anxiety. Many readers have described how this pause feels like releasing pressure from a boiling kettle. One person noted that even 3 minutes of deep breathing before the day began left them calmer than any cup of coffee. This habit lays the emotional groundwork for what follows. Affirmations come next. The author thinks that the words we speak to ourselves shape who we become. By creating statements about the future as if they are already true, you begin reprogramming your mind. Some people write affirmations such as, "I am focused and disciplined in my work," or "I treat others with patience and kindness." One example from the author's life was writing down the type of goals he wanted to achieve in the coming year as though they had already happened, which gave him both confidence and clarity. Visualization is closely linked to affirmations but works through images instead of words. The practice involves closing your eyes and picturing a specific outcome in vivid detail. The author recommends imagining not only the end result, but also the process of achieving it. For instance, someone preparing for a big speech might imagine walking on stage with steady steps, speaking clearly, and seeing the audience respond with interest. This mental rehearsal can make the actual event feel more familiar and less intimidating when it arrives. Exercise is the 4th habit, and it is designed to wake up the body. It does not have to be a full workout. The author suggests even a few minutes of yoga, jogging in place, or simple stretches. The point is to flood the body with oxygen and boost circulation, which naturally sharpens focus. A mother of 2 shared how she fit in 5 minutes of squats and push-ups while her kids were still asleep, and she noticed she felt more awake than on mornings she relied only on coffee. This proves that even brief movement can create a powerful shift in energy. Reading is the next piece of the puzzle. The author advises spending time with books that inspire growth instead of scrolling on social media. Even 10 minutes with a personal development book can expose you to new strategies, ideas, or perspectives that compound over time. One reader shared how she spent each morning learning about marketing, and within months she was applying those insights to change her career. The difference came from steady, daily input instead of waiting for rare moments of study. The final practice is scribing, which simply means writing or journaling. This can take many forms. jotting down gratitude, reflecting on goals, or capturing lessons from the day before. The author himself used journaling to rebuild focus after traumatic setbacks. A reader once described how writing just one sentence of gratitude each morning shifted their mood, making them notice positive moments throughout the day. By putting thoughts onto paper, you create space in your mind and track the progress of your journey. Together, these 6 practices form a structure that is greater than the sum of its parts. Silence grounds you. Affirmations and visualization shape your mindset. Exercise energizes the body, reading feeds the mind, and scribing brings clarity. By repeating this stack consistently, mornings stop being an accident and start becoming a foundation for intentional living. The author believes that discipline in these first moments leads to lasting change in every area of life. With the framework now clear, we can explore each of these habits in more depth to understand why they are so effective. Coming from the overview of the 6 habits, it makes sense to begin with the ones that prepare the mind. The first is silence. For many, mornings are rushed and noisy, filled with thoughts of emails, deadlines, and family demands. Yet the author thinks that carving out even a few minutes of quiet can completely shift how the day unfolds. Silence here can take many forms: meditation, prayer, breathing exercises, or simply sitting still. The point is to calm the storm before it starts. One stressed entrepreneur described how he committed to 5 minutes of mindful breathing each morning. Within a week, he found himself handling difficult conversations at work with more patience and clarity. The author often recalls how, after his accident, he woke up and faced a new morning, and in that quiet space he began building resilience. Science supports this as well. Studies show silence and mindful breathing can lower cortisol levels, improving focus and reducing anxiety. By starting in stillness, you create space to choose your best response to whatever comes next. Moving from silence, the practice of affirmations takes the spotlight. Affirmations are not about repeating empty phrases but about deliberately programming your mind with empowering beliefs. The author began using this tool at age 19, writing the statement, "I am the most positive person I know." That line became his compass, guiding how he showed up in daily life. By affirming it repeatedly, he trained his brain to notice opportunities to act positively, until optimism became natural. The author thinks that affirmations written in the present tense, as if goals are already achieved, help you embody the qualities you want. Imagine writing down, "I speak with confidence in tomorrow's meeting." The next day, with that message imprinted, you are more likely to walk in tall, project your voice, and notice yourself doing exactly what you declared. Research on self-talk confirms that positive affirmations can reduce stress and boost performance by reframing how you interpret challenges. Affirmations also work best when paired with intention and emotion. A useful tip is to write them down and read them aloud while making eye contact in a mirror. Doing this daily strengthens the brain's connection between words and identity. Another technique is to keep them visible on a phone screen, a sticky note, or a journal so they become reminders during the day. When practiced consistently, affirmations transform from words into lived reality. Visualization naturally follows. This habit uses the power of imagination to rehearse success before it happens. The author explains that visualization is more than daydreaming. It is mental training that prepares your subconscious mind for achievement. Athletes have long used this approach, imagining their performance in vivid detail. A golfer, for instance, may picture the perfect swing, feeling the grip, the motion, and even hearing the ball's flight. By the time they step onto the course, the body follows the mind's rehearsal. One reader described how he visualized confidently negotiating a raise. He pictured the conversation, his calm posture, the words he would say, and his manager nodding in agreement. When the moment came, he felt he had already lived it once, which reduced nerves and improved his delivery. Science backs this up. Brain scans show that imagining an action activates many of the same neural pathways as performing it. The author adds emotional detail to strengthen the practice. He suggests closing your eyes and vividly picturing not just the outcome, but the feelings of pride, relief, or excitement that come with it. By repeatedly visualizing these moments, you signal your subconscious to guide choices that align with those images. In his words, imagine a life of limitless possibilities. Anything is possible. This attitude removes fear and builds courage, because the mind has already rehearsed success. As he also puts it, there is nothing to fear because you cannot fail, only learn, grow, and become better. Visualization tips are simple yet effective. One approach is to set aside 2 or 3 minutes each morning, pick one specific goal, and imagine it in sensory detail. Add the sights, sounds, and emotions to make it real. Another is to pair visualization with affirmations, so the words you speak and the pictures you see reinforce each other. Over time, this daily rehearsal builds confidence and directs energy toward meaningful goals. Together, these first three practices form a mental foundation. Silence clears the mind, affirmations program it with empowering beliefs, and visualization directs it toward desired outcomes. They work as a trio: calm your thoughts, speak your truth, and see your success. Once the mind is aligned, it becomes easier to move into the physical and practical steps of the routine. Now that the mental side is primed, the next three habits, exercise, reading, and scribing, will show how to energize the body, expand knowledge, and anchor progress through reflection. With the mind now grounded through silence, affirmations, and visualization, the next step is to energize the body. The author thinks that movement is a non-negotiable way to wake yourself up fully, both physically and mentally. This does not require a full gym session or an hour-long routine. He often begins his mornings with a glass of water, a bit of green tea, and a short round of exercise to get his circulation flowing. The key is simply to move. One office worker shared how he replaced his morning coffee ritual with 10 squats and a quick jog around his living room. The burst of energy surprised him. It felt sharper and more sustainable than caffeine. The science is clear. Movement increases blood flow, delivers oxygen to the brain, and releases endorphins that naturally elevate mood. Even 5 minutes of yoga or stretching can reset how the body feels. The author emphasizes that this step is about conquering physical inertia. After strengthening the mind in the earlier practices, this is your chance to strengthen the body, so both are aligned. Reading then extends the routine into mental growth. The author advises using this time not for news headlines or endless social feeds, but for intentional reading that feeds your goals. Personal development books, inspiring biographies, or practical guides work best because they offer lessons you can immediately apply. Think of it as investing in mental nutrition. A young entrepreneur once shared that he dedicated just 10 minutes every morning to reading business strategy. By the end of a month, he had already implemented 3 new tactics that helped his small shop grow. The author said that reading in the morning primes the mind for success because it directs your first thoughts toward learning instead of distraction. Over weeks and months, these small chunks of knowledge add up to deep expertise. It is the compound effect of reading daily that changes the trajectory of your ideas and decisions. The final practice, scribing, closes the loop by turning inward. Scribing means writing anything from gratitude lists to journaling your thoughts or mapping your goals. The author used this habit to regain focus after personal setbacks, recording insights and lessons so they became part of his growth. One reader shared how she began writing down 3 things she was grateful for each morning. At first it felt forced, but soon she noticed herself paying attention to small wins throughout the day so she would have something new to record. Her overall mood shifted from stressed to appreciative. Others use journaling to sketch out their level 10 life, a concept the author describes as striving for growth across 10 key areas of living. By writing goals and tracking them daily, you create accountability. The author also reminds us that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, which makes journaling a powerful way to shape thoughts before they translate into actions. Scribing does not require pages of writing. Even 1 or 2 sentences can anchor the day. A busy parent explained how she kept a personal planner on her desk, where she combined a short reflection with notes from her morning reading. This blend of learning and writing turned her early hours into the most productive part of the day. The act of putting pen to paper slows your mind, sharpens focus, and helps clarify priorities. It is less about style and more about honesty, capturing what matters most in the moment. By the time you finish exercise, reading, and scribing, the full S.A.V.E.R.S cycle is complete. The author assures that once each of these habits is enacted, you step into what he calls a peak state that lasts throughout the day. 60 minutes of this structured routine functions like charging your phone overnight. When you finish, your body feels awake, your mind feels sharp, and your purpose feels clear. This is the true miracle of the morning, starting not in chaos but in clarity, ready to perform at your best for the hours that follow. Now that the 6 practices are clear, the next question is how to actually bring them into everyday life. The author thinks that flexibility is the key. The routine is not meant to feel rigid or intimidating. If an hour feels impossible, he suggests doing a 6-minute miracle morning, spending just 1 minute on each of the S.A.V.E.R.S habits. A student once tried this compressed version during exam week. With only 6 minutes before rushing to campus, she spent 1 quiet breath in silence, whispered a quick affirmation, pictured herself passing her tests, did a set of jumping jacks, read a short motivational quote, and wrote 1 sentence of gratitude. Even this short routine lifted her mood and sharpened her focus for the day. The message is simple. Any version is better than none, and consistency matters more than length. Adapting the structure also makes it possible for different lifestyles. A part-time professional might stretch the routine to 90 minutes, enjoying longer reading and journaling sessions. A busy parent might split the sequence, doing silence and affirmations before the kids wake, then finishing reading and writing after school drop-off. The author said that even people who once believed they could never be morning types ended up reshaping their schedules. In fact, surveys showed that most readers who tried this routine had not considered themselves morning people, yet many now identify as such after a few weeks. The idea is not to fit into someone else's mold, but to design a practice that works within your real life. Preparation the night before plays an equally important role. The author often reminds readers that a successful morning begins with how you close the day. Avoiding late-night scrolling, setting an alarm with intention, and writing down tomorrow's priority before bed all make it easier to wake up with clarity. He even recommends placing your alarm clock across the room so you physically get out of bed to turn it off. That one small step removes the temptation to snooze and forces momentum into your body. Ending the night with positive thoughts also primes the mind for rest. The author devoted an entire section to sleep, suggesting that affirming you will wake up refreshed regardless of how many hours you get can improve how you feel in the morning. Of course, resistance is common, especially for those who identify as night owls. One man shared that he had snoozed through multiple alarms for years, always starting the day late and groggy. Following the author's suggestion, he placed his phone on a dresser across the room. The first week felt awkward, but soon his body learned to rise with the first ring. Over time, he found it easier not only to get up, but also to stay awake. Another reader described splitting the practice because of family demands. She completed meditation and exercise before the household stirred, then saved reading and journaling for after the morning rush. The author stresses that the point is not perfection, but progress. Starting with one habit and gradually adding others builds a sustainable rhythm. He once wrote that each time you choose to do the right thing, you are developing extraordinary discipline, which reframes small choices like avoiding the snooze button as wins in building character. When challenges arise, small adjustments keep the momentum alive. If you oversleep, rather than skipping entirely, shorten the routine to a few minutes. If meditation feels stale, try guided tracks, background music, or even prayer if that resonates more. Technology also helps. Some people use apps that combine timers for each habit, turning the process into a guided sequence. Others join online communities where participants share wins and struggles, creating accountability. The author even created a mobile tool to help users track their miracle morning progress, showing that structure and support can make a difference. Testimonials from readers reinforce how these adaptations work in real life. One woman shared online that within a month of trying the practice, she woke each day with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. She used her early hours to finally complete a manuscript she had postponed for years, replacing the old habit of scrolling through social media. Another reader said that the first 30 days felt like a hack, but the real miracle was noticing how his mindset shifted toward optimism and control. Stories like these highlight that the transformation lies less in the specific actions and more in the discipline of showing up each morning. The final lesson is to approach implementation without guilt. If a day is missed, the answer is not to dwell on failure, but to start again the next morning. The author believes that consistency outweighs perfection, and the compounding effect of daily practice gradually reshapes identity. Over time, what begins as a forced effort turns into a natural rhythm. The real miracle is not the single morning routine, but the steady habit of choosing how you wake up, day after day, until it defines the way you live. Building on the practical ways to adapt the routine, it's worth looking at the bigger picture of how these habits transform lives. The author said that millions of people across the world have now experimented with this approach, and the impact has been felt in business, personal growth, and even recovery from major setbacks. Entrepreneurs like Pat Flynn have shared publicly that incorporating the 6 habits gave them more clarity and focus when managing demanding projects. In another case, a small business owner who had struggled to keep up with clients credited her early routine with giving her the calm and energy to double her sales in 1 year. These stories reveal that the morning framework does not just create productivity, it creates confidence that carries into the rest of the day. The concept of the level 10 life ties this all together. The author thinks most people settle for far less than their potential, living in what he calls mediocrity. He challenges readers to rate themselves in different areas such as health, finances, relationships, and personal growth, then ask what it would take to reach a 10 out of 10 in each. The miracle morning becomes the tool to close that gap because the daily habits act like small deposits toward those bigger goals. The math is straightforward. Even a 1% improvement every day compounds over time, leading to remarkable transformation within a year. This idea reframes success as a daily process rather than a sudden leap. The reach of the movement shows how deeply this message resonates. Since its release, the book has become a bestseller in dozens of countries, with translations spreading across multiple languages. There are now podcasts, online groups, and local meetups where people share their experiences and hold each other accountable. Some readers post daily snapshots of their journals or workouts, showing that the practice has grown beyond a book into a community. The sense of shared effort helps sustain motivation, since participants realize they are part of something larger than themselves. The personal results also speak loudly. The author himself once used this system to pull out of financial debt and regain stability after a period of despair. Many readers echo similar breakthroughs, saying the routine helped them recover from burnout, repair strained relationships, or finally launch projects they had delayed for years. One aspiring writer described how she wrote every morning for 3 months, completing a manuscript that had been sitting unfinished for years. Another noted that by journaling gratitude daily, he noticed a shift in how he spoke to his family, softening conflicts and creating more warmth at home. These are not abstract claims but tangible results that show how 6 small habits can ripple across every part of life. Still, not everyone embraces the routine without hesitation. Some critics point out that adding an hour each morning feels unrealistic for people already stretched thin. Others note that the approach can seem overly enthusiastic, presenting a single formula as a universal fix. Yet the author anticipates these concerns, reminding readers that the structure is flexible and can be shortened to just a few minutes. He argues that the point is not about the clock but about intention, and that even a shortened version delivers value when practiced consistently. By acknowledging the critiques, the method shows itself as adaptable rather than rigid. One of the author's most powerful reminders is that your entire life changes the day that you decide you will no longer accept mediocrity for yourself. That statement captures the heart of the miracle morning. Ordinary mornings create ordinary outcomes, but a deliberate start creates extraordinary momentum. The 6 habits may look simple on paper, yet together they invite a person to live at a higher standard in every area. Taken as a whole, the routine builds far more than mornings. It builds identity. Each choice to rise early, breathe deeply, read with purpose, or write with reflection reinforces the belief that you are capable of growth. Over weeks and months, these beliefs shape reality. The Level 10 life is not a distant dream, but the cumulative result of countless small mornings where you chose to live intentionally. In this way, the miracle morning becomes less about time management and more about life design, step by step guiding you toward the best version of yourself. Looking back at everything we have explored, the miracle morning is more than just a list of habits. It is a toolkit for building mornings that set the tone for an intentional life. The author thinks that when we choose to start the day with clarity, energy, and purpose, we unlock possibilities that ripple into every area of our lives. In fact, many readers who once struggled with procrastination or doubt now report that they feel more disciplined, hopeful, and motivated simply because they embraced the first hour of their day. One woman who had long postponed writing her first article finally committed to the routine, and within a month she had published her work and felt transformed in her confidence. On a personal level, I decided to try the 6-minute version myself. 1 minute of breathing, 1 minute of affirmations, a quick visualization, a few squats, reading a page, and writing a line of gratitude. To my surprise, my mood lifted noticeably, and I carried more focus into the rest of the day. It proved to me that even small steps matter. The broader message is simple. We all have a few spare minutes, and how we use them shapes our days and ultimately our lives. As the author said, change begins when we refuse to settle for mediocrity. By giving yourself the gift of a miracle morning, even for just 30 days, you may discover that the most powerful transformation starts not with the world around you, but with how you rise each morning.